everywhere I go, I see his face.
The Tom Holland protagonist. You've heard of it before, right? It's like a phase within the animation industry to cherry pick a kind of mold for a main character to look like. I'm not talking about the examples where Tom Holland is literally the protagonist. This goes way beyond the years of that measly little 27-year-old. The Tom Holland face is, you know, this face, or this face, or this one. The characteristics of the Tom Holland archetype are a little bit fluid, but generally what you're looking for is a round face, typically brown hair, more often than not bushy, but it can go pretty short sometimes, curly, wavy, anime, that kind of look. Sometimes there's a real big schnoz in the middle, though later down the line we've seen more button noses that still fit the bill. Big ears are also optional, but very apparent. Tom Holland does kind of look like an elf, I guess. But the more defining characteristics are the awkward disposition. This is a must. They gotta stutter, they gotta be unconfident. Being shy or shy adjacent is a must. From a glance, you can just tell that they are meant to be an unmasculine type of character. Definitely small and oftentimes dainty. You know, the type of lad that looks like you could snap him in half and they glow like a glow stick. Just like the real Tom Holland. But of course, even as I list out details that are usually used, a lot of each of these bullet points also have some variations behind them, as even characters that don't have most of these traits still can kinda fall into that uncanny Tom Holland valley. There are dozens of characters with the Tom Holland face. I mean, let's just have a look at some of them. There is, of course, first up, the Direct to Holland collection, which more likely than not just started modeling their models off of the model of T. Holland's looks, because he was literally cast in these roles, and probably to play into his typecasted role aesthetic. This is your Blue Sky Studios Spies in Disguise Walker Beckett. He's thin, he's nerdy, he's fluffy. It's practically Peter Parker. Switch on over from tech to fantasy and you get to Pixar's Onward and Ian. Somehow, it's identical. Skin tone be damned, and we don't even seem to mind the wingspan of his ears being enough to receive radio signals at this point. Also thin, also fluffy, giant nose. Tom Holland. But then, let's see some examples that don't literally have Holland's voice coming out of them, and we don't have to look too far, because in the classical collection of standard faces, we could jump ahead a holiday and reach Arthur in Arthur Christmas. I can't exactly explain where he's identical, but he is identical. The nose dimensions, the dwindly legs, even with a slight haircut on the fluff, since this is 2011 and we're not full-on Gen Z anymore, and it really is like a copy and paste job. And back in this ancient age of 12 years ago, where memes look like this, not even a Tom Holland artifact coming in anymore. The Tom Holland face is bigger than Tom Holland. Since, unless Aardman and Sony Pictures were paying way too much attention to some random comedian's 14-year-old son, they didn't even know that they were on trend. In fact, the Tom Holland face can even go further back in animated time, back to 2007, and Pixar again, with Ratatouille and Linguini. This is like that father figure to the Tom Holland trope. Dude would be in his early 40s by now. Do I want a Ratatouille spin-off sequel on Disney+? Regardless, it's Tom Holland's future look in another decade. A bit taller than the usual, but he's got the big nose, noticeable ear radius, and fluffy curly hair. This time in red. Awkward, unmanly, and boy does he know his way to noodle. He is the original Tom Holland face. And so shockingly fitted that he's barely even an outlier from the rest of the barrage. Other variations we can get are the likes of older Ben 10, more confident than usual, straighter hair and 2D, but I can see it in there. And even off of the classic studios, you've always got Bigfoot oh my god. Okay, who mutated Tom Holland with the insects again? You got Ron's Gone Wrong's Barney with a more square bone structure that still kinda has him in there, always with the radio dish ears. Cloudy with a chance of meatballs Flint feels like a multiversal variant of the archetype. The hair is technically fluffy, but different fluffy. The nose is the same, but stretched to an oblong, as is the rest of the face shape. It's still got that Peter Parker scientism to it, but amped up a bunch. And his hair's black. Tom Holland adjacent. Tim Holland. And keeping tall too. And even when it's clear that the characters are designed to be from a specific region in the world, still that Tom Holland mask is melted on top of these characters to thread them all together into a format. Pixar's Luca's Luca is kinda there. Small, round, shy, and fluffy. Pixar really likes this design, huh? Big Hero 6 and Hero. Okay, this one's kinda pushing it, but he's fluffy, small, and round. It's another Peter Parker scientist. How to Train Your Dragon. Specifically one. Small boy, round, shy, straight hair that still gets a little fluffy, and with a new direction for how to age it up. Hair getting fluffier, losing the roundedness, and growing a beard. The point is, Tom Holland crops up in a lot of different places, but it's not so much Tom Holland's fault, since this has clearly been an ongoing thing for a long time. What's also interesting to mention with all these examples is that they are not just random characters to be seen in the story, they are all right slap bang in the center of their stories. They are each the main character, and that reflects a lot on us. Rewind time back to the 80s, and this wasn't what our male protagonists looked like. The archetype back then was Arnold Schwarzenegger. You had buffed up Sylvester Stallone and Rocky. You had the A-Team. You had big, super muscly, manly men. Take it on monsters or war with massive guns and massive guns. And you could probably extrude that was emblematic of what kind of fantasy people in the 80s wanted for their stories. They wanted the super strong hero archetype. They wanted to see the peak of physical form as it came together to take down an incredible opponent, be it aliens, predators, or other muscly, manly men. Wartime was very much on people's minds, so the visions of bazookas and helicopters felt very fitting in a decade of anxiety and suspicion. Then jump to male protagonists of the 90s, and suddenly we're a lot more slimmed down, but also pretty active in a different light, with political climates being typically more cooled, or at least relative to pretty much every other decade in existence, and fantasies were more based in just expressing past the boring and mundane. Now suddenly we had adults dealing with the corporate cubicle office job. Normal dudes who want to start a fight just to feel something. An average Joe who wants to escape his planned reality that has everything perfectly lined out for him to succumb to. It was a rise in comedy and lightheartedness to relieve from the grind of an unhappiness from the dull. It was about creating heroes that are accessible to the ordinary human. Early 2000s, I think everyone was just confused. Literally looking up 2000s male protagonists on Google Images doesn't even bring up a single full page of results. It was just a wild west of tales as we experimented with 3D animation programs and began the trend of just repeating what was done in the past. But come back to now with the 2010s and 20s and we're back to the Tom Holland look. Our protagonists now are lingeringly young, their potential not yet reached. It's about the optimism for even the less strong amongst us to grow into something to be proud of. But what does that say about us? Anxiety. It threads through all the decades. These days, we're all feeling pretty weak and vulnerable. The world that surrounds us is crushing. Not to mention, with the rise of awareness for mental health, I think it's not too much of a stretch to assume that the industry has noticed that and decided to bring in an essence of that to the main characters of the now in order to find relatability for the target demographic. Us. And even as we look around to other protagonists that clearly are not the Tom Holland protagonist on visuals alone, still somehow the characteristics are in there. There's a hint of Holland there. Or sometimes you can just see it in the fan casting choices of so many boys being pinned to Tom Holland anyway. Atlantis kinda doesn't work, but ask the fans and they want Tom Holland in there, just with a parting instead. Meet the Robinsons. Somehow I see him in there, after you give him a serious shave. Hotel Transylvania and Johnny again. It borrows just enough of the traits that people have fan casted him for a live-action redo. They're not doing a live-action redo. Mr. Peabody and Sherman, nerdy little kid. Strange World, doofy, youngish adult. It's gotten to the point where even when there are protagonists clearly built around other male celebrities in the acting sphere, still Tom Holland's general appeal has been associated with them. Roddy from Flushed Away, Rodney from Robots, even bloody Wade from Elemental. Somehow, you can see it. No one's safe from the blanket face statement of the Tom Holland face. Shaggy and Scoob was taken down, and even Mr. Generic logo face with Chris Pratt attached merges into a cast with Tom Holland instead. And it's not just the fans putting these pieces together in an extrapolated manner. Even insider casting directors have made the misstep of aiming outside of the Tom Holland range, since we even gave Tom Holland's face to the role of Nathan Drake in the Uncharted movie, when the role clearly would fit someone older. It's like the Tom Holland face can be cast into anything. Hold on a minute. What if it's not Tom Holland's face being plugged onto these casting choices? It's that Tom Holland himself was chosen the first time in the first place to adhere to these established shaping standards. This isn't the Tom Holland face. It's just that Tom Holland has the linguini face. He too is just as much a victim to the bone structure as every animated character modeled to look this way. I mean, what are we even really looking at when we look at this variety of different faces? It's circular heads with a non-defined jawline. It's youthfulness or a lack of macho manisms. It's big quirky body parts like ears or a nose to come off as endearing and kind. A little weird, but not full-on Dumbo or Pinocchio. It's a design that remains, for all intents and purposes, pretty basic, really. You want a small, unintimidating character? This is pretty much your first draft. And in an era of animation where every 3D movie does just kind of look the same, it makes proper sense for all the characters to look like variants of each other, or like somewhat cousins. This isn't an intentional celebrity mimic. This is just another way of playing it safe. Screen tests and past success has shown this look of a character works well for a main protagonist, so why not just copy someone else's homework, but make it look a little different? This isn't a trend because we all have the same opinions on Tom Holland as Zendaya does, it's all just because it's generic and easy. We were only just breaching onto the idea of movies no longer having their own standoutish look in the 2000s, and it's only become more clear in recent years as everything is filled with nostalgia bait and reboots of old franchises. Movies aren't changing like they have done in the past, and this is all just a stylization issue. What we really need is variety in animation presentations. And what better way is there to put an end to the Tom Holland look than by switching up the hot stylization look for future animated movies to bench off of? Chances are, it already has been replaced. Onward and Luca likely being one of the last whimpers of this same design for a little while, as we head on into a new stylization. Our protagonists may remain feeble to overcome their biggest hurdles, but perhaps it's time for the Tom Holland look to finally move on and change, like the rest of the world is just about starting to do. Maybe the traits of our protagonist may just change again for this decade. As for what's next for the Tom Holland face, either his agent really needs to put in some work to give the guy a decent run that's not a Spider-Man gig, or maybe Holland should try out some new faces based off of all these variant ideas. What do you think looks better? Hiccup from How to Train Your Dragon 3, or do you think it will be more of a classic Linguini? Whatever the case, it was all just classic Corpo movie stuff, baby. And I had best end it off here. So for now, my name's been Daz, you didn't really care, and I'll see you in a bit.